feel like flying, feeling free. I know that you can do better than me. You guys know what dro is? CeeLo Green is a big inspiration of mine. I'm just kidding. I just freaking love his music. But he always says dro, D-R-O, in his songs, and it's referring to weed. But I've never heard that term other than his music. Dro in the wind. But anyways, yeah, today's podcast is about weed. No, I'm just kidding. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't F around. I don't party. Come on, you guys know me. I do have a pretty fun thing to talk about, though. And I'll start it off with a question. You ever talk to your future self? Oh my God. This is something I've done my whole life, and I have a little statement here that I kind of want to actually start out the podcast with. Fulfillment, okay? Fulfillment comes from maintaining strong signal between your past, present, and future self. This is some esoteric, high-level stuff right here, because I think when you're young, you have a really strong understanding of who you are, what you want, and that might sound wrong. You might think back and go, God, I didn't know who I was or what I wanted when I was really young. I was just trying to figure out life, and you go through middle school and high school and you go, God, what am I supposed to do? But that's all connected to a career and all the normal bullshit that everyone kind of leads you through. I'm talking about, the big picture of what you want. You want to have an incredibly fun life, and you want to be able to experience things, and you want to be happy. And I think this real idea of fulfillment is something we're all familiar with. Maybe not necessarily an experience, but what we want out of life. Again, I think we experience that very, very early on. So what I'm really talking about here is kind of the vision of the higher self. So we all know that there's a better, worse, best, worst version of ourselves in kind of the hypothetical realm. So I look at my highest self as the version of me where I get in the way of myself the least, or 0%. So if, tiredness or imperfection or emotions weren't an obstacle, then what could you do at your absolute best? Of course, we're not always going to be our absolute best, but everybody wants to be a better version of themselves, and we all kind of have that similar common denominator that we're all shooting for. So when we look at the future self, the present self, and the past self, it's kind of a similar type of communication with you, but again, it's this hypothetical realm, kind of this higher self sort of connection and communication. Super weird stuff. Honestly, it's kind of hard to organize my exact ideas around this kind of thing, because when I was younger, always had this really strong image of this higher self, right? Just this concept of the best version of myself and life. And I always made it a really strong point to have communication with my future self, as weird as that may sound. So where most people are, I would say most people can't conceptualize their future self, so they outsource all of their problems to it. Where again, my experience was making sure that I had really tight communication with my future self. So look, when I'm 5 years old or 10 years old and talking to my future self, quote unquote, what I'm really meaning here is that through the lessons that I had learned from other people, through other people's experiences that they talk about, through other people's warnings of what to do and what to not do as you grow older, you kind of know what your future self is going to look back on with gratitude or with distaste. And so you can look forward and say, okay, what is my future self going to think? And we kind of know the answer. I think we actually kind of know the answer, because I can look forward to my 80-year-old self right now and probably have pretty reasonable insight. So I'm really young, looking forward to my future self saying, what is he going to want to have done? What is he going to want to look back on in the future, which is right now? And I'll kind of get to this weird timeline game in a little bit. But it's just paying my efforts and thinking forward to my future self. Now, again, where most people are, I think they don't really keep that connection very strong because, like the higher self, the view of that gets very, very clouded very early on, whether that's from your environment, just the things you hear, what you see, the people you're around. Most people don't get a fair chance at holding on to their higher self because, you have the fifth graders who are going, oh, I want this boring ass job just so they can virtue signal to their parents and, their parents' friends so that they think they're a mature 10-year-old and whatnot. But really, they're just selling themselves short of creating a really amazing life. So I'm kind of going all over the place here, but you can kind of see what I mean. Totally off track. Oh yeah. Most people can't really conceptualize and hold on to this because their view of that gets clouded. Then you become a quote unquote grown up, and this is just embedded into the way that you think. So what do most folks do? They outsource all of their present problems to their future self, because to most folks the future self is not real. That's just a weird abstract sort of idea. Oh yeah, me in 10 years, I'm never going to get there. It took me a damn eternity just to get to the end of today. So 10 years from now, that's never really going to happen. So people become a little bit, I don't know, what would that be? Arrogant almost? There's almost an arrogance to that of, oh, I'm protected from 10 years from now. Well, time flies when you're having fun. Time also flies when you're bullshitting your way through life. So you'll make it to that 10 years from now self, and then you'll look back and be pissed off. So people are outsourcing their problems to their future self because they can't grasp what the future self actually is. Whereas, again, I'm kind of reflecting back on being really young. I was going, okay, I know that in 10, 15, 20 years, that's kind of the extent of my timeline right now, that I am going to have feelings about my past, whether they're good or bad. And right now, again, this is me speaking as a 5 or 10-year-old. Right now, I can literally control what it is I'm looking back on in the future. So I'm always looking out for that person, and I never, ever outsource pain to my future self because I know that I'm headed there. The present self is, well, I guess it's forever, but it's also kind of temporary because each millisecond of the present self immediately becomes the past self. So I've always been really big on treating my future self as good as possible. And it served me well in a lot of ways, not just, oh, I'm going to, invest and then later on I'm going to have a bunch of money kind of thing. But kind of that structure when it comes to building self-respect and emotions and the way that I live and think and treat my body. There's always been a very strong connection and almost conversation with the future self. Kind of weird. So the biggest trend, I feel like, especially with old people, right, is regret. There's a strong warning from every freaking old person you talk to of, hey, don't do this. Don't spend your high school years and college years trying to just impress people and just fit in. All these cliches that get repeated over and over again. Don't drink and drive, the simplest shit in the world. And young people refuse to listen. And I don't get it. You have people from the moment you're on this earth telling you to not be a dumbass and to make good decisions, and they've been on this floating rock for maybe 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, maybe 100 years, and you're not even going to consider just this tendency to ignore the warning, ignore the real pain coming from older people of saying, I wish I didn't do this. That is not just some surface level advice. That is, God, if I could go back and change my life and I can't, here's what I would do. And young people just go, oh, nah, that's stupid. And then they are so drawn to feeling the consequences of making mistakes for themselves that they're wasting damn near a whole other lifetime on making the same mistakes, restarting the same exact cycle. And I don't know, it kind of pisses me off. And I try to not talk about all this I'm talking to my future self and all this stuff to make myself seem super special or like a hero. It's definitely not that. This is just something I've taken really seriously for a long time, and I think that there's a lot of value in that. It's served me very well. So I hope that if you're listening to this, there's a sense of, hey, I can actually take this on right now and implement this into my life. It's never a too late kind of scenario. But again, I get really frustrated with this desire to feel the consequence of arbitrary problems. We all need to make our own mistakes. I've made millions of them. We've all made millions of them. But other people's experiences, that is a ridiculous library of information that you can pull from. And the blueprint to be successful is kind of right in front of our faces. I mean, you can go on YouTube right now and figure out how to just make money. People spend their whole lives trying to figure that side of things out, and people just give information about it. Okay, make money. Cool. We're also being handed the blueprint of how to love ourselves and how to have respect for ourselves and the people that we're around, how to improve our self-talk. I mean, the blueprint genuinely is there, but again, people are so drawn to feeling the pain of making their own mistakes, the mistakes that aren't super necessary, and they're resetting that cycle. So I would imagine that the average parent, I don't know, 28, 30 years old, whatever. When you're a parent at 28 to 30 years old, all you're trying to do is raise a child based on everything you've already learned. And I don't know what the dynamic is for most people, but a parent will make all these mistakes and have these bad relationships and, smoke the wrong thing or whatever it is. And they're telling their kid, hey, maybe don't do this, maybe do this. And then the kid, in most cases, generally speaking, doesn't listen, makes the exact same mistakes as their parents, and starts it over. Or I'm thinking, God, I mean, shouldn't 3 generations go by and then we're kind of 3 generations ahead intellectually? But it's not even the case. I mean, we just keep starting over. We keep making all the stupid ass decisions, and it just bugs me. So I think, anybody listening to this, of course, but especially young people, I mean, we have a real opportunity to learn from the people that came before us. Seriously, not just in a, my mom said this, what does she know? And you do the same garbage, and then you grow up to be a parent nagging your kid about the same shit, but you're not even an example of the good stuff that you're trying to instill in them, and the avoidance that you're trying to instill in them with all the bad shit. If we're just telling the story and saying, oh, don't do this, it's going to be really hard for those after us to actually trust it. So there's a couple things regarding our responsibility that we should probably focus on. Again, it's learning from those before us and then becoming an example that those after us can actually learn from. Because nobody wants to just take words, but those who do, again, we kind of have an advantage. So right now, you are your future self's past self and your past self's future self. So again, this is that signal between the past, present, and future self. If you think about where you are right now, look back 5 years, and this was this weird, abstract future self that you were looking forward to and maybe outsourcing a bunch of problems to. So you say, I'll worry about that in 5 years. Well, knock, knock, here we are in 5 years. And how does it feel? If you outsourced a bunch of problems to yourself and present self is going, screw you, well, then you can kind of see how that would create a pretty bad relationship and a bad signal between past and present self. But now the good news is your present self right now is perhaps looking forward at a 5 years from now self. And if you genuinely were trying to learn from the past self to now angst, then you would say, I'm at a pure opportunity to mend the relationship and mend the dynamic of now and 5 years from now self. So I'm going to act in my best interest. I'm going to create all the data points in my life that make me respect myself. I'm going to do the best that I can to build the right kind of relationships. And I'm going to spend each day treating myself like gold so that my life becomes better, so that I like myself more, so that 5 years from now, the emotional and effort-based investments that I've been putting in, they will actually pay off. So right now, you're at a ridiculous advantage to even know that the present self can be paying it forward to the future self. And again, maybe a few thousand people are going to hear this podcast, but there's billions of people out there doing the opposite. They'll keep on spending years and years forwarding the problems to the future self, and then they're going to look back and be pissed. Imagine that. So I would say to speak on my own experience, again, it's just tough because whenever I'm reflecting on my much younger self, I kind of speak to myself in intention, not necessarily just pure dialogue, if that makes sense. So sometimes I'm reflecting on my younger self and I'm putting that into words, and maybe people are going, oh, that's what you were saying when you were 5. And I'm going, well, not really, probably not in those exact words, but that was kind of the feeling because maybe I didn't have the tools to. But a couple of experiences of mine, my biggest one, I'm looking at my notes here, wondering what my future self will be grateful for. So again, this is that idea of what can I create right now that future me is going to be stoked about? And this is just taking on all of the data that everybody else talks about. This same message of, hey, do this, don't do this. And then I can kind of look forward and say, well, I would imagine that 5 years from now, I'd probably be stoked if I was incredibly healthy and just never ate bullshit food, for example, or never spent money and time and energy drinking and smoking and doing all those distraction-based things. I'll probably be pretty stoked if I don't get caught up in stupid-ass relationships. And so that was always my driving force was, hey, what is my future self going to be grateful for? Again, I think if we get really honest and we kind of get down to the baseline of reality, we kind of know this, but we don't want to acknowledge it because, well, it kind of takes work, you know what I mean, to be uncomfortable right now to create real comfort later on is not something that's super attractive to people. This gets into the whole idea of discipline and consistency and all of those things, but it makes a lot of sense when you can really tap into this conversation with the future self. There's this, I made a little video about this idea a while ago, put it on Instagram, but basically I do what I want all the time. That's kind of my conclusion. I do what I want all the time, but I'm listening to my hour from now self. So do I want to spend all day working and editing things and writing down notes and doing laundry and exercising and all that sort of stuff? Especially today, not really. I'm actually smoked. I did this competition yesterday, which was so much fun. It's called Apex, and it's just pure athleticism based stuff. Freaking broad jump, high jump, 40-yard dash. It was so sick. So, do I really want to do all of these chores and complete a huge to-do list? No. But my hour from now self, or let's say 8 hour from now self, all kind of the same, what does he want? Well, he wants to have that whole to-do list knocked out, because there's a feeling of gratitude from that. There's a feeling of completeness. There's kind of a resolution to the day. Well, of course, that's what future me wants. So what am I going to choose to do right now? Well, I could be selfish and say, oh, I'm just going to kind of push it off. Well, then I'd wake up tomorrow and be double pissed off at myself of today for bullshitting and putting all of that work off. You know what I mean? So it's always what I want. But am I listening to my future self's want or my present self's want? The present self, again, that would be kind of a selfish pursuit. Oh, I want to just sit on my ass all day. Okay. Most people listen to the present one. I want to listen to the later one, because that's what keeps me respecting myself. That's what keeps me kind of above that line, whereas you sink below that line and it's a tough place to exist. So there's this dynamic where most people hate their past self. I use most people in kind of a general sense. I think not everybody, right? But a lot of folks hate their past self, because you always hear people that go, God, I was such an idiot back then. And they always speak so harshly about their past self. So a lot of people don't like their past self. Their present self, it's just kind of floating. And then the future self is actually a source of fear, which this is really interesting. So again, past self is pain. They hate the past self. Present self, whatever. Future self is fear. Because they can look backwards and say, yeah, I wish I hadn't done all that. Ugh, now I'm here. Right? So the present is a product of the past decisions. And if they don't like the present, that's usually where that is. And then the future is, oh, I'm afraid I'm not going to do what I'm supposed to do. I'm afraid that things are going to get worse, because I can see kind of this trend, this downward trend of life. And I'm afraid of that. And I don't want that to come, because I've outsourced all my problems to that version of me. So that's where the fear is based. Now, the dynamic that I would love everybody to experience, and I would say this is kind of my experience, I look so fondly on my past self, because there were all these imperfections and all the mistakes and whatever, but I know that my intention was always to serve my right now self, and I can see that clear as day. It's a crazy thing to experience, honestly. But I look back and go, man, that little 5-year-old or that 10-year-old me, all he wanted was to make right now the best case possible. And I feel the effects of that. Right now is a product of the past decisions, and I'm freaking stoked about it. That's a luxury that not enough people get to experience. So there's that dynamic. And then we take the future dynamic. I look at my future self and go, damn, I wish I could be that guy. Because I know that my tendency to make the best of every single 24 hours guarantees me the best version of what my 30-year-old self could be. So I'm ridiculously excited about my future self, because again, I know damn well that version of me is going to be way better than the one now. So there's a massive, massive comfort that comes from this dynamic. But where does that comfort come from? Huge discomfort and huge sacrifice in the past. You know what I mean? But again, that's why I'm able to look back on the past self super fondly and go, man, what a freaking trooper. Let's go. You know, set me up for success. And that is something that I'm so grateful for. So again, if we can take this idea that right now you are your past self's future self, and your future self's past self, you can take advantage of right now and serve your future self, so that you can be sitting there in 5 years and go, hey, thank you. And it's kind of a handshake to your past self. That is what I want for anyone listening to this. If you can hear my voice, please use right now to serve the future self. And if you have the past self version that you don't like, it's going to be a big override. because kind of distrust within the self, or lack of self-respect, low self-esteem, these things are hard to overcome, but you cannot let that so far taint the present moment that you do the same shit to your future self. So things to consider doing. Again, using right now to serve the future. That's kind of just my blanket statement right there. And I could go into all the details of the things that you can do. But look, when it comes down to it, it's just doing the things that prove you respect yourself. Eating healthy, exercising every day, kind of expanding your way of thinking, adding new perspectives into your life, building good relationships. These are just the simple building blocks of a good life. It's hard to do them when you are coming from a place of not really loving yourself, not really having that respect, not building the data points of being consistent in the things that make your life better, but you have to override that. There's no other way than to create new data points that would reflect you liking yourself. So that's a huge deal. Do what you want to have done. This is my listening to the hour from now self idea. Do what you want to have done. So I like to use these tenses of speech to reflect that right now I want to have. So I wish that I basically did X, Y, and Z. So do what you want to have done. If in 5 years you want to have done a marathon every single year and, I don't know, worked on public speaking, then train for the marathon and do the public speaking so then you can grant that wish, basically. And then lastly, use your older self as a guide and take that shit so seriously. It's free game. You know what I mean? Just imagine, visualize yourself at 80, 90, 100 years old and go, what am I likely to be wishing my life consisted of at that age, on the deathbed? It's a powerful thing. I mean, I guess it's kind of scary if you're just so resistant to getting off your ass and doing something, but really visualize this. Ask yourself, picture the damn hospital room. I don't know, do what you need to do to tap into that older version of you and ask, what would I be wishing for at that point? Grant the wish, please. Please take that guide seriously, because that's a big freaking deal. And again, it's free game. The blueprint is right in front of you, and no one is taking advantage of this. So this is something I just feel really strongly about, because again, my experience in recognizing this very early on, I don't know what the hell made that the case, but I am stupid grateful for it, because it has just helped me keep that signal. Because again, my first note here, oh wait, I scrolled up, I'm an idiot. My first statement: fulfillment comes from maintaining strong signal between your past, present, and future self. Keep that signal, please. With that, this will be the end of the pod. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found some settling nature to staying along for the ride of my on-the-fly thinking and just going all over the place. Because things like this, I mean, I can have a me-based podcast where it's just in my head. I go, yeah, this sounds great. But sometimes it's hard to put into words, and these concepts are some of the harder to just make sense, basically. So again, I really hope you got something from this and can pull away some value, put that into your life. But to end things off, if you are watching this on YouTube, definitely subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode. Leave a like. I would appreciate the heck out of it. And any questions that you have, any comments that you've got, anything you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments of the video. I just adore hearing from you guys. So leave me some comments so I can see what you're thinking. If you're listening to this or watching this on Spotify, would appreciate giving the show 5 stars. And you can also comment on Spotify. So again, want to hear from you guys. It makes my day. And I try and get back to every single comment, so they don't go unseen by any means. So definitely leave a comment there. if you would like to hear more of my ideas in more of a text-based form, I have a free newsletter that you can sign up for. It's a 2 times a week newsletter. So just writing down my ideas, very similar strain of thinking as this podcast, but on paper or digital paper. And again, I send that out twice a week, so you can subscribe to that for free at the link in the description or show notes of the pod. And last but not least, you know what it is. 3 words: no phone dinner. The best 3 words ever. Now, but look, when you're eating dinner tonight, your phone should not be in the picture. You could be with your friends, you could be with your family, you could be all by yourself. All of those are great opportunities to get rid of all the distractions and just condense down to right now. Look out the window, listen to the AC noise, watch your fan. Whatever little things are going on around you, pay attention. Give yourself the space. It's a really powerful thing that I'd love for you to try if you're interested in being a part of a community that's based on the No Phone Dinner. I have a No Phone Dinner ongoing challenge that you can join. I'll put the link to that in the description or show notes, where you can see other people's consistency on the leaderboard of doing the No Phone Dinner every single day. Admittedly, 2 days ago, I was at a dinner event, and it was one of the 3 times in the last year that I've eaten dinner somewhere else. And I just thought, man, I'm a social media guy. I should be documenting things. God, I never take photos. And I took a photo of my dinner, and then later on I went, oh my God, I took out my phone. I did not complete the No Phone Dinner that day. So, exposing myself here. But I did not live up to my duties. So, didn't mark it off on that day in the challenge. But again, if this is something you're interested in, just to have other people there along your journey of being accountable to yourself, you can have others to count on too. Again, that link will be in the show notes and description. That's all I've got today. Love you guys. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.